During the last administration, it was the military's view, specifically the Army's view, that the Army chain of command had to impose a higher standard of discipline and moral warfare execution than did the civilian leadership at the time. And this goes back to what happened in Guantanamo, how it morphed over into Abu Ghraib, and it caused General Petraeus, among others, as the commanding general, to put a letter out. We are not going to torture prisoners. We are going to follow the following policies associated in our treatment of detainees. Near concurrent with that, you had an unfortunate face-off between Mr. Rumsfeld and General Pace. And the comment was related to finding something going on that is wrong, but it deals with Iraqis, a sovereign state at that time. And General Pace said that the soldier or Marine is obliged to stop the activity, to stop the illegal activity. And the Secretary of Defense at the time said, no, the obligation is to report the activity. And General Pace came back and said, stop the activity. General Pace had to recant the next day. That gives you an idea of some of the ambiguity that came from the highest level of our government and its impact on what was going on in a theater of operations, where the military actually had to go in and establish a higher level of moral code than they were getting from Washington, D.C.
Tony's next, I guess.
Tony Capaccio with Bloomberg News. I had 2 quick questions for Doug. One, at this point, have any of the 300 Iraqi names that the Pentagon was particularly concerned about in the WikiLeaks documents, have any of those names been released on the dump from last week? Or did WikiLeaks, at this point, in your estimation, do a credible job of redacting those names? Then I have a follow-up, but I'll answer that first.
Again, Tony, who is my great friend, a question like that is more appropriately directed during the daily briefings to the briefer. But I will say this, that we understand that the WikiLeaks team understands redaction. You had to have been deaf not to have heard the message the first time. We still believe that there are individuals who could be at risk. We believe that there is information about how we conduct ourselves on the battlefield, which can put our soldiers at risk, and we are doing everything possible to address that. And there is an enormous amount of manpower and financial resources going into having to do this that would not have been necessary had these documents not been released illegally. So I'll just leave it at that.
Second question. Between the first WikiLeaks dump in July and last week's dump, there was Woody leaks in the latest Woodward book. The city was definitely silent about the material that was in his book. He bragged about his access to classified documents, his access to contemporary officials last November and December. Nobody else could get to, but he had access to them for his book. It's a striking double standard, it seems. How do you square that circle? Outrage for WikiLeaks, deafening silence, or praise? Everyone should read the book, according to Gibbs at the White House. When that thing is filled with classified information and probably access to individuals that Mr. Gates is probably tearing his white hair out. But how do you square the two?
Great question.
Me again?
Yeah.
There are 3 other people on these panels.
You don't want no. You don't want my answer.
Actually, I'll ask all of you. Then.
No, but that's okay, because I think it is a valid question. I mean, we are living at a time when we're seeing presentations of facts and opinion appear like we've never seen before. WikiLeaks is certainly one of them. I mean, Bob Woodward has written 16 books. He does have a kind of iconic presence in this town, given the Watergate coverage. It's hard for me, Tony, to really reply to what I think is a great question about the Woodward book, because what we've seen in this is the rise of kind of histories that don't cover years and decades and long periods of time, but they may cover, 18 months. It's a new definition of history. It is clear that given the kind of coverage that takes place here, coverage is no longer just separated into here's the news and here's the gossip and here's the stories about who's up and who's down. They all do tend to blend together. And I think that there are the kinds of new relationships that individuals have, both who are in the press and outside of it, that I think come together to collectively raise new kinds of questions that haven't been raised before. I don't know how I would answer that question, other than to say that those kinds of questions are being asked when they have never been asked before.
Right. Well, they're being asked by lawyers, I tell you now, when they got clients being, the government's going after them and leaking classified information. And the point of, well, Woodward gets the stuff, why isn't he on this thing?
Yes, they're being asked by lots of people.
Well, so if you had to define the difference between the information in the Woodward book and the information that WikiLeaks released, is there a difference in is it a quantitative difference or qualitative? What's the difference?
The information that was presented by WikiLeaks is hundreds of thousands of documents, literally, obtained illegally and dumped illegally, snapshots in time, individual reports with no context and no permission. Those who talked to Mr. Woodward about his book, each of them talked to Mr. Woodward consciously and for a reason. I am not a judge, and I am not the person to judge why or how they did it. But each of them did so knowing what they were doing. I don't think the release of the documents illegally obtained was done in any kind of coherent manner for any kind of stated purpose, with anybody having reviewed everything that was in those documents. I understand the question, and I understand that they're not easy answers.
So leaks with a sophisticated political agenda are acceptable?
No, I didn't say that they were acceptable. I just said that if you asked what the difference was in terms of the information conveyed, that's how I'd convey the information. It is not for me to judge the Bob Woodward book. I've never been in a Bob Woodward book. And with any luck, I'll never be in a Bob Woodward book. And those questions are probably best asked of those who were.
Well, one thing I can say for sure is that the Justice Department, which I covered until very recently, has been much more aggressive under Obama in actually investigating leaks, criminal investigations of journalists for obtaining classified information. Should the Justice Department be investigating Bob Woodward's sources as leakers of classified information?
I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, so I would probably not be the right person to be, asking or answering that question. But I understand the reasons for the questions, and I understand that we are seeing new forms of presentation of what is a combination of facts, opinion, and stratification that we hadn't seen before.
I mean, I just remember there was one anecdote where he went into a meeting with a bunch of classified maps. I mean, I know other journalists who might be arrested if they had maps like that. So it's a good question. Do you, Kirk, or generally, do you want to weigh in on those? Or there's a lot of other ground to cover too. So
Kirk has ground level detail on reporters coming into arenas where classified information is exposed and the rules are understood. At the same time, I'm reminded of President Nixon's comment, to paraphrase, it's not wrong if the president says it's not wrong.
That's right. The president can declassify documents, right? Just by saying, here it is.
Yeah.
I think just one point I would make is I think some of the people Woodward interviewed statutorily have authority to release classified information. I think that's one big difference.
Right.
But I thought it was just the president who could declassify.
Each level of classification is a program where the guy who is responsible for that can act on it. So it does not all go to the president for classification authority.
Doug, you weren't here last September, but Woodward got the
Can you wait till the mic? Yeah.
Woodward received the McChrystal assessment that classified on every page. Everybody was trying to get it, but he got it. And the Pentagon bent over backwards on the weekend before he came out. They declassified just all of it. Elisabeth knows this. So, again, the double standard issue. Nothing happened to him. There was a deafening silence, a twittering of wrists and stuff. Oh, we're sorry it got out, but that was it.
You are absolutely right, Tony, that I wasn't here last September. I was preparing a conference on military families. So